What's up in War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy Ike Jones, and we're back with another morning drop. Today, we are talking about the tight end room and can Rivaldo Fairweather have the breakout season that he wants to have to get himself pushed to that next level? Let's talk about it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report.
Morning drop. It is Monday, August the 19th. We're here with another Rogue Shop morning drop. And before we get started, got to give a shout out to the sponsor, rogueshop.com. Head over there, use code FREEZE4, new code alert, 15% off your purchase when you use code FREEZE4 at their shop, America's #1 online dispensary. The folks at Rogue Shop are catching the freeze mania, and they are excited about these wide receivers, and you should be too. Use code FREEZE4 when you go over there. The receivers are an important group for Auburn this year, and they are important not just because of the pass game, of course, what they open up for Peyton Thorne along the outside, but what they help you have in the run game and with this tight end room as far as the pass game is concerned. So we want to talk about tight ends today. Before we get into some of the comments that the coaches have had about the tight ends during fall camp, let's take a look at the folks that are in the room right now so that we can have an accurate picture of what's happening. We'll start with the only tight end that has left from Auburn, and that is Tyler Fromm. He transferred out. He's a guy who was a big pass catching target. And when I say big, I mean size, not necessarily number of targets, but a guy who has had some good moments in an Auburn uniform, and he's going to be missed from that room. I think Coach Freeze and company wanted to bring back that entire tight end room and not really have to go out to the transfer portal to bring someone else in. But Tyler Fromm decided it was best for him in his last year of eligibility to transfer elsewhere. So wish him the best of luck. But in exchange for Tyler Johnson, essentially from the transfer portal, what they got back out was Rico Walker, the sophomore. So they got someone with a very similar kind of build and skill set out of the transfer portal, a big physical pass catching target, but a little bit younger there in Rico Walker, the transfer from Maryland. So Auburn is set at the tight end position for this season as far as bodies are concerned. But returning for Auburn, these are the big ones that are going to get most of the time. I think Rico Walker is essentially going to get another redshirt season this year at Auburn. But coming up this year, you've got Rivaldo Fairweather, and he is the guy, right? Rivaldo is the man in that tight end room. The senior, he's looking to, in his own words, have a season where he is one of the best tight ends in college football this year. So looking forward to seeing what those new pass catching targets on the outside do to open it up for Rivaldo Fairweather. Micah Riley, the sophomore. Listen, I am very big on Micah Riley as a do-it-all kind of guy in this room. He's a guy who I feel as if can do everything for you. He's not fast like Valdo is, but he's big. He's a big target. Pretty sure-handed. If the ball is thrown in a catchable position, he's usually going to come down with that. And he is easily the most physical at the point of attack when it comes to blocking in this room. So he is a guy who I expect to get some playing time this season, to be able to go out there and be a people mover in the run game and be someone who can go out there and get some catches for you in the pass game. Looking forward to seeing what Micah Riley is able to produce this season for Auburn. Luke Deal. When you hear Coach Ben talk about Luke Deal, he's like another coach out there on the field for him. So he's a guy that they're going to really count on to bring that group together in the tight end room and make sure that they are understanding everything and just know how to operate. He is kind of like a big brother in that group for them. When you hear him talk, you hear them talk about Luke Deal, great guy. And he should factor in as far as his leadership is concerned for that group. Next up, you have Brandon Frazier, who another big target for Peyton Thorne to be able to utilize in the pass game. Fairly sure-handed out there. He's made some good catches out there during fall camp. So good things happen when you throw the ball towards Brandon Frazier, it seems. But he is going to be another person who I expect to be out there and utilized primarily in a pass catching role when he's on the field. Camden Etheridge is sophomore out there, someone who not going to factor in super heavily, I don't think, as well as Grant Hidalgo. Neither of those guys do I anticipate getting a lot of playing time this season, but they are available there in the tight end room for Auburn to be able to utilize. Looking forward to seeing how Auburn deploys this tight end group for their maximum effectiveness. But listen, this is a group that really had started to come along as a group that was going to be formidable. It seemed as if Auburn had a stretch where the tight end was just really a big pass catching threat, and that fell off in the last couple of seasons. You thought, I mean, well, let me not say last couple of seasons, but really there in the Harsin regime, it seemed like it was just kind of up and down for a little while there. But last year made the reemergence. Rivaldo Fairweather was the leading pass catching and targeted player on this team in the past game. So he's a guy who's going to factor in heavily again this year. I don't anticipate him being the leading target guy this year for this team, but I do anticipate him having one of the higher catch rates, meaning number of targets to actual receptions are going to be higher for Rivaldo Fairweather this year, because I just feel as if there's going to be so much attention being paid to those outside guys. And when you hear Peyton Thorne talk about this, he said he had never thrown to the tight end as much in his career as he did last season with Rivaldo Fairweather. Now, some of that had to do with the lack of confidence that the staff, even Peyton Thorne, and really just the whole passing concept they had in the wide receivers and what was happening out there. Rivaldo was a more sure-handed, more he's going to be where he's supposed to be kind of guy for this team. So he was getting a lot of those targets in that regard. But I do anticipate, with Coach Freeze's history with those pass catching type of tight ends, that's going to continue to be a focal point for Peyton Thorne in this offense, to be able to get the ball to those tight ends. And Rivaldo Fairweather is the prototype for that kind of guy that can go and present a matchup issue for whomever it is that he's lining up against, especially if you're going to have those pass catching targets on the outside be so effective when you talk about guys like Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, the likes of Perry Thompson, even when you get into the Robert Lewises of the world. They're going to demand attention when they're out there on the outside. You have to pay attention to them. It's going to make it difficult to bracket Rivaldo Fairweather like a lot of teams were attempting to do last season when he was out there. So he should be in a more prime position to be out there and be more effective, even if he's not going to have the same number of targets. Now, if he has the same number of targets as he does last year in this kind of system, I expect him to go absolutely crazy this year in terms of what he's going to do. Now, his yards after the catch weren't very high last season, but again, he was a guy who was targeted the most of any receiver or any pass catching target for this team last season. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be counted on heavily to just kind of bring a little bit of a sense of calm and be an escape hatch or a safety net for Peyton Thorne, as one of the few receivers he's got returning that was actually catching passes from him last year. When we looked at the wide receiver group, you saw there's only two guys returning for that unit, right? And neither one of them were highly targeted guys when you talk about Camden Brown and Caleb Burton, right? Caleb Burton had a decent amount of targets last season, but that was really more towards the end of the year. Rivaldo Fairweather is really the only returning receiver that has any sort of year one rapport with Peyton Thorne. So he's going to be counted on heavily this year. Now, I want to move over and I want to look at, or listen to, I should say, some of the comments that Coach Freeze had in terms of how they're going to be approaching this year, because it was assumed by we here at the War Report, from all of what we had heard out of camp, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of what we saw at the end of last year, which is 2 tight end packages, a lot of 12 personnel. But Coach Freeze has some thoughts about that. We'll listen to that. But before we do, we definitely want to give a quick shout out to the folks over at JOYMODE. Make sure that you all head over there to tryjoymode.com. That's right, new URL there, tryjoymode.com. 20% off and free shipping when you use code RAPPORT. Let's get straight to it, man. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. But the problem is, sometimes our thoughts get in the way of our performance, or maybe we feel like we're just not reaching our full potential. What are your options? You pick up a sketchy gas station pill or get a prescribed drug with a long list of side effects. That's where our friends at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that will give you that extra dose of confidence and save you the embarrassment of the hassle of a traditional erection pill. JOYMODE Sexual Performance Booster is an all-natural, science-backed solution to increase blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. It comes in a palm-sized packet like your favorite electrolyte powder. Stir in 6 to 8 ounces of water 45 minutes before sexual activity and watch the magic unfold. Literally. Not only is this the only supplement you'll need in the bedroom, but it also supports your blood vessels, cardiovascular health, athletic performance, blood pressure, and more. Even on days when you're not having sex, you can take the SPB to boost nitric oxide in your blood, which not only supports your erection quality long term, but also increases the blood flow circulation. This allows for your cardiovascular system to pump blood more seamlessly and effectively to the areas of your body that you need it, whether it's during workout, sexual activity, or your regular daily exertion. When combined with a healthy diet, sleep, and exercise, you'll greatly improve your cardiovascular health. Make sure that you head over to tryjoymode.com. Use code report. That gets you 20% off plus free shipping when you head over there. And that lets them know that the folks at the War Report sent you. Now, when we head back over here and we're going to talk about the performance of this offensive line group, I think it's important to note what we, again, talked about is this group is one we expected there to be more than one of them on the field at a time. And Coach Free says that might not necessarily be the case as much this season. The slot receivers just didn't get a lot of opportunities last season because they were going to, and there's a lot of reasons for this, right? Like, of course, there is the portion of this where there wasn't a lot of trust in the outside receivers to be able to do what they needed to do. So get less receivers on the field, go to a group that you trust more. The tight end group was one that Coach Freeze and company felt really good about them understanding the offense and what they needed to do. Plus, they wanted to be able to run the football more effectively because you've got this stable of running backs that are out there. And Coach Freeze talked about this a little bit in his last address to the media about he wants to be more multiple in the position groups that he's throwing out there. It's not just going to be an 11 or 12 personnel group. And you could see some 10, some 20, some 30 even personnel groupings out there. You're going to see more. And it's going to help the tight end room. So let's hear Coach Freeze's comments, and then we'll get back in and react to that.
So I think you'll, and Rivaldo, we played him too much last year, truthfully, and your routes get sloppy and they get slower the more we're asking, and so that 10 and 20 definitely give him a breather. So as long as those receivers keep coming on, I see us being more multiple in personnel.
So the emergence of the guys in the wide receiver room is going to help with Rivaldo Fairweather and the rest of the tight end group be more fresh when they're out there on the field and not have to be relied on. Coach Free says he feels like they played Rivaldo Fairweather too many minutes last season, and that contributed to some of the things that you might have seen. If you guys remember, late in that Bama game, he had a crucial drop there during one of the late drives. He came up limping during one of the later drives in that game, right? So Valdo is a guy who was being counted on heavily, but maybe a little too much. And, there's a couple of things that can alleviate that, right? Like playing some of the other guys there that you trust to be able to go out there in that same position where you don't feel like it's Valdo or bust in that tight end room. You've got some other guys that can go out there and make some catches for you. Maybe not as dynamic, maybe not as quick as Valdo and not the same kind of pressure they put on defenses, but can be effective for you if used properly, number one. But number two, if you're able to just pull the tight ends off of the field altogether because you have wide receivers that are doing a couple of things. Number one, being where they're supposed to be on routes and catching the ball when it's thrown in their direction. But number two, being able to be physical in the run game and help you by blocking. That's one of the things that I think I like a lot about what is a prototypical Coach Freeze receiver is they're big body guys, and they're not afraid to go out there and mix it up. They're usually going to be the same size or bigger than most of the DBs and safeties that they'll have to be going up against on that the outside there when they're trying to block. So if they're willing to be physical, which guys like Cam Coleman have seen that they've embraced the physicality. Perry Thompson has always really been a guy who likes to be physical. If you watch the film that we had with Keandre Lambert-Smith, our Green Name gang, you go out there and watch that. You see that he has that kind of ability to get out there and be physical a little bit as well. So you've got guys on the outside who can go and do that. I think Robert Lewis is of that ilk as well. He'll go out there and mix it up and be physical. So you've got wide receivers. Now, if you can put more of them on the field and you can give Valdo some of those breaks late game when you get into scenarios where you need to go into, hey, who are my best pass catchers out here, right? No huge knock on Valdo. I've said this about him many times. He's not the best blocker in the world, right? So maybe when we're going into more of the sets where we want to get into the downhill run game, we can pull him off of the field, and we have some other guys that we trust to be outside receivers where we don't feel like we've got to go 12. We can still go 11 or 21. He even talked about going and putting multiple backs on the field at the same time, even to the point of putting 3 of them on the field at the same time, because they have come along in their ability to block as well. But when you get into that multiplicity of personnel, it allows you to do some different things out there and get crucial rest for guys like Rivaldo Fairweather. So again, when you get into those late game scenarios where you're like, all right, I need my 4 best pass catching targets out here. You haven't played so many snaps for Valdo. When you get into those, that now he can go out there and he can be crisp, and he can be, he can have fresh legs at the end of the game to run the kind of routes that you need him to run, to be able to win in scenarios when you need him to go up there and win those one-on-one battles. You don't have him worn out at the end of the game, and he can go out there and deliver for you in those moments. And be clear, Rivaldo Fairweather is going to be one of the 4 best pass catchers on this team going into this season. He is just a matchup nightmare no matter where you stack it, how you stack it up. He's going to be a guy that you want to get the ball into his hands. So it's looking really good. The emergence of the wide receivers has put more confidence in Coach Freeze that he can do those sorts of things and allow for that tight end room to have to be, or to be able to be more interchangeable, and they can be more multiple in the way that they're going to attack these defenses coming up into this season. But I want to hear what you guys think about this tight end room. Are there any guys that are not named Rivaldo Fairweather that you're looking forward to hopefully seeing more of them on the field and be effective out there in certain scenarios? And what do you feel about what Coach Freeze said about the multiplicity of personnel? If you want to hear the full comments, that press conference is up on the channel right now. But that's it, man. I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys listening to me once again right here on the Morning Drop. Always brought to you by the folks over at RogueShop.com. Use code FREEZE4 for 15% off of your purchase at America's #1 online dispensary. Whether it's sleep, stress, pain, anxiety relief, Rogue Shop's got the remedy for you right there. Before you get out of here, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the content with somebody. We'll be back at you with another Morning Drop tomorrow. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.
Drop!